Today is the 7th July 2026. I'm doing another practice of trying to keep a little bit more eye contact, use my hands, have them a little bit more on the screen, maybe use them a little bit more and get more comfortable with keeping eye contact and showing and using my hands a little bit more when talking in a video for YouTube. And today I want to talk about demotivation. I'm very demotivated right now. It feels like today is like a really bad day, and it's not just that. I mean, I feel demotivated to do these videos since like Saturday and Sunday. I made a break. Yesterday I wasn't in the mood for that, but it's not just the practices. They are actually not really any reason why I'm really demotivated. It's more so I'm just running kind of against the wall with my current game dev journey. And so why I'm demotivated right now, I'm trying to get into learning art, and I'm just, what is it? I'm just running against the wall right now. I'm stuck with like what kind of art style, or not just art style, mostly the workflow I want to do. And currently I'm thinking about either go for voxel art, or I go for vector art in 2D, or I think like I could go more of a box style art where I just use boxes and do some 2D pixel art texturing, more so like the Minecraft or high tile art style. If I would have to pick any reference, or maybe some retro art styles that go a little bit more pixel art textures with very limited low poly arts to like more box style art from the modeling shapes here. And my reason behind these kind of art styles are I really want to limit the skills that I need to learn. I'm drawn to voxel art and to vector art very much because they're using the same skill sets and the same tools for creating the shape of a model, and then to create basically the texture, the coloring, like the details. They use both the same tools, vector art in 2D, voxel art in 3D, and they just use the same skill sets for both parts of like shaping a model and texturing or like coloring a model. These are like I like it to break it down into these two parts that comes to making a model, and then of course for some on top of that would come animation, rigging and animation. But I mean, these skill sets, they don't really change. They don't change in 2D. If I do like any kind of 2D art style, if I do 2D skeletons, that's decently the same and a little bit simpler, but very much the same as in 3D. And no matter what 3D art style is, I would have to do some form of rigging. I very much just look at like mostly cutout animation, so like moving just the whole part of the mesh, or just a simple mesh object with like a bone, not doing any like of bending. That's what I have in mind for an art style that I want to learn, because it just removes weight painting in like a skill set I would have to learn. I'm not really interested in doing very complex UV mapping, so I don't really want to do complicated models and like model edits that I have to UV unwrap. So if I do textured, so if I do any kind of texture painting, I would very much limit it to mostly boxes or just some small exceptions. These are like the things that I'm thinking about. But currently I'm just in my mind, which just creates a lot of hesitation and anxiety and fear in a way to even like get to that, because I just see so many roadblocks that keep me from just getting into it a lot. I tried it with my game jams, especially the last one, to get a little bit more into arts. The one that I'm currently doing is like jumping a little bit too far. That's what I can do right now. And so I'm running into this wall where I don't really feel what to do, how to move forward, how to even learn and start with making just some simple assets and getting into the artwork flow. And I'm very much blocked, and I have like a mental blockade right now, and I'm feeling like running against the wall, and nothing that I want to do works, and I can't move forwards, but I want to, and I'm putting more energy into it, and I'm not getting anywhere, and that makes me feel very demotivated. On top of that, lately I just feel stressed in general, and I have a lot of muscle tensions right now, so that also adds to that I'm not that active. I'm getting a little passive right now currently again. So there are just other external factors that increase this state of demotivation quite a bit. That doesn't make it very easy. I currently see the blocks from the art styles very much on when it comes to voxel art, for example. The issue that I have with voxel art is mostly the tool set. So when it comes to voxel art, I just kind of have to see that I would have to develop, at least in parts, my own tools for that. Magic Voxel is a nice tool to actually to make a voxel model. But especially for more complicated things, I really just need to have a way to make sub models. So like to have a model and build it out of different voxel assets and combine them and like rotate them and like attach them near each other just like as mesh objects. And Magic Voxel doesn't support it, or from the test that I've done, there's not a way to export that in a nice way. So I really would have to like then build a way from Magic Voxel to like export the vox files and then transform them in another program. Which even like the vox files, Magic Voxel is not even able to from my simple test, at least I haven't found. I mean, maybe there's some settings, but Magic Voxel is not able to export like a hierarchy of voxel assets or models or meshes or datas, and every like vox object in the Magic Voxel is just one asset, and that limits, like that makes just the workflow so much more frictionful that I can't just make a model in Magic Voxel and have it like rotated and multiple parts. And then it also has quite a restrictive limitation on like the size of how much voxels you can use, especially then compared with, okay, you have to split them, but if you split them, you can't just export them easily as one. And you can't export it in a way that I would like it to use. So I would have to do some conversion anyway, even for simple things that are just a little bit bigger. So it just messes things up where I have to use at least 2 different projects to do anything with Magic Voxel objects. And that's not something that I'm really keen on. And on the other side, it just make my Magic Voxel is, at least to my side, it was like updated a year or longer before. So it's not in a very, it doesn't has a high update rate. So it's not that maintained much, which is not necessarily very comforting to like get into an art style and into a program that might not be supported in the future and might just break or whatever. So that's not really something where I'm feeling confident in putting a lot of practice into that program and like kind of trying to build my art workflow on that. On vector art side, which I do enjoy it, just mostly due to first not that much into 2D games. And there for me on the art side is my like something that I just really do not want to have, is the idea that first I have to put into my art skills that I have to make the art with a perspective in mind. So I have to learn perspective with that on top. Well, in 3D modeling, I can just make the model how it is, like how something would just be in 3D, which I don't have that much issues with. And then even if I just have a fixed perspective in the game, well, I just do this with a 3D camera, which is just a lot easier. So, and with like 2D art, that means, well, if I want to not just the perspective for anything, but well, if I want to rotate, if I want to have to play a character or any kind of the character that walks like from a top-down perspective or anything, if he goes left or right or up or down, I mean left and right you can mirror, but left, up and down or something like that, that's, yeah, I have to redo all of the sprites and all of the animations. Even if I do skeleton animations with vector, which I probably would do, I would still have to redraw the like facing of a character and I would have to redo all of the animations and have them match good enough, which is just a process where I just think that sounds ridiculous to me, that for any kind of angle where I want to like rotate and move a character, I have to completely redo a character or an asset, which is just something that really makes me hesitating to invest into 2D art. And then, well, the other options would be either going low poly without any kind of texturing, which then I'm always having a little bit of an issue that, well, if I don't use any texturing with low poly art, well, how will I... First, just I would have to texture, so I would do some UV unmapping just with like a color map palette texture or like some kind of gradient texture, where not make a texture for a model, but I just have like a fixed color palette or gradient texture, and I paint it with like into a fixed texture. So I have a pre-made texture and like I paint it with like UV unmapping, which would be a style that I could go for probably. But it's also, I think, quite difficult on one side because I think in low poly, when you very much rely on shapes and on forms, for that to have details, these scales of details probably have to be somewhat consistent. That means it becomes difficult to have really small details in parts where you need them, or they might clash with like the art style and just be inconsistent, which is something that I'm a little bit worried into going into that direction. But it would be potentially one of the better styles that I could go for, the least frictions in that. The other direction that would be more so low poly or just like box modeling, but just do boxes without any modifying the vertices or any kind of like skews or like scalings of any size. So just rectangles and boxes. And then potentially using some 2D textures on that, where the UV mapping would be quite easy, and then doing some pixel art with that, or just even some basic pixel art. For both of these art styles, you could either use Blender or Blockbench. There would be options, whereas in my previous test with Blockbench, I had some issues with the textures in Godot with some UV bleeding, which I haven't actually looked enough into, but it already ran into very first problems just with basic things. So I'm not so happy with that. And in Blender, the biggest issue for me with like pixel art texturing in Blender is more so that Blender can do so much, so I'm not really limited in Blender by what it can do. But more so when I want to limit myself, how much is Blender supporting me in limiting myself in a way that's just good and easy and usable. And there's so much that I would have to blend out in Blender when I'm just a little bit overwhelmed, which I like to avoid. So I kind of would like a simpler way. That's also why I like to go into vector art and into voxel art or into just box styles. But then Blender in its toolset is a little bit too free and allowing. And it's something that really have to look into if it's possible and easy to just limit even like the usage and the tools of Blender to make it easier to stick with limitations. And that Blender can help me in that way. I'm not sure. That's something that I would have to research. Yeah, but these are more so the technical sides that I'm thinking about, and where I just think about all of these. Every direction has major roadblocks. Something might just feel like I don't want to do this, and I'm just a little bit hesitant and afraid. How should I overcome this demotivation right now? I think the most important part that I can do right now is actually move away. I cannot move against. I cannot work and force myself against this wall of demotivation. I very much have to go around. I very much have to now move in another direction. Just maybe in the next days focus on doing something that's fun. If I want to do game dev, maybe I should start another small game dev that's more like gameplay focused, or that uses pre-made assets to just... I'm not sure if that's the best way, because I want to do game dev currently. So maybe in the next days it's just a little bit more so on just making a few assets or looking into something where I can do something smaller. Nothing where I have to do characters or anything of bigger animated styles. You can just make single objects. That would be a little bit easier than any kind of going into characters. So I'm also currently running against an issue. That would be way, but very much I think in the next step just have to focus on doing things that are fun, that are enjoyable, that are also active. I really have to get back into a little bit more of being active again. And I'm not sure how I would do this with game dev right now, but I think I have to take it a little bit slower. Maybe go back in what I really liked in my last project, doing some more immersive interactions and doing just some very simple models and art for that, and just making a scene, just kind of a small interactive scene. I think maybe something like that could be a little bit more fun and achievable. Just something that's a little bit, just a small thing that I could work on in the next week and the next days. And I think that's probably what I will do. I will stop it right here. My time is already over. The practice, I think from the eye contact worked a lot better. I also didn't had as much issues of it slowing me down that much. It was a little bit there. I think hands are doing fine. It's going in the right direction. Eye contact is a bit more important, and I know what to talk about even when I'm looking at the camera. That's something that I want to focus about. I hope you have a good day. I see you tomorrow.